God bless. This is Mark Anthony DeBello, and welcome to NFL Moneyball. We're talking about week 2. We're going to open up with a wrap up of week 1. That program lasted 40 minutes. I'm going to keep this one to a half an hour. I say we because I believe it's me and God, or God and I. He comes first. Sometimes, surely, I'm imperfect. Typically, I rank my prophetic predictions at 91%. Um, I leave 9% open to human error, but of course, I would rather have his 1% than my 99%. God knows all, and unless you know God, you don't know anything. So, having said that, I am also blessed to be able to use my God-given ability and gifts and hard work and experience and ingenuity and the mind that He gave me. So, having said that, last week, with regards to the NFL-ESP or NFL Extended Strategic Principles, which again you can find on the website at NFL-ESP.com. In analyzing the sole team that we really looked at was the Chicago Bears against the Buffalo Bills. I actually made a note to head coach Trestman this week. He was kind enough, again, to write back for my input. The note regarded a couple of decisions in the second quarter where the Bears were actually up, I think, about 70-something yards and down in score, I think, 7-17 at that point, and a couple of turnovers that they ended up punting on a 4th and 5 in Buffalo territory at about the 40. With about 5 minutes to go in the second half. They actually should have gone for that. The home power spread favorite, typically performs better in a momentum sense in the second and fourth quarters. And at that juncture, when you're down a couple turnovers like that, and you're down in score and you're not being productive, but having a total yardage advantage of, like I said, over 70 yards, you need to manufacture points, a word I use quite often with coach and with NFL ESP partners. You really want to manufacture points, so you're going to have to take some chances, and that was going to be one of them. Punting there was not the optimal percentage call. Then surely late in the game, with about 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, trailing 17-20, plus about 200 and something yards at the time, I think 207, still down the -2 turnovers. In that case, and most teams won't do this, but the typical basic strategy mindset of a coach, or especially a conservative coach, would be the obvious to kick a field goal there and send the game into overtime. But again, from NFL ESP perspectives, which can and have proven, at least over the last 15 years, to increase the team's win production by 1 to 2 wins, or 10 to 15% a season, and that equates to 1 to 2, or sometimes even almost 3 wins in a regular 16-game season. In that scenario, you don't want to take the game into overtime, especially 4th and 1, and especially down. I think they were at about the 19-yard line. I love Coach Trestman. He's a brother, but that was an ill-advised call. I won't call it a mistake, an ill-advised call. And as I noted, and I'll go over briefly last week, the foremost effective or efficient or productive plays or aspects of a game are, number 4, quarterback time extended in the pocket or behind the line of scrimmage to complete a pass, or rushing yards. And if you basically, if any analytical guy ended up calculating that time, even if you've just used a stopwatch, you will see there's more, obviously, and better production from the quarterbacks solely based on their time, either, like I said, in the pocket, extending the play behind the line of scrimmage, or definitely rushing yardage. And I could probably devise a pretty standard formula that could show you that. So that turns out to be the most productive aspect of any team's offense. Secondly, is home field. Number 3, as I progress to number 1, is home field advantage. We gave a low to 2.5 points for Jacksonville and a high of 4.5 points to Seattle. Everybody else, basically, Denver gets 4 points for home field advantage. Everybody else is between 3 and 3.5. Most teams at 3 points. The Bears right now are at 3 points for home field advantage. I can't give them 3.5 for a couple of reasons, but I don't know that they did get a biased call. I didn't see a tape of the game. I saw some of it live. I read most of the plays and the play-by-play. But typically it's a biased home officiating call, and I'm just going to presume that the Bears did get that. Number 2 is everybody mostly knows it's turnovers. But again, we use a more complex system than a -1 or a +1. Fumbles are ±3, interceptions ±4. Bearing in mind that fumbles have a more random nature to them, and interceptions, are more reliant on the quarterback, if you will, and certainly more impactful in return yardage, and that's why they get the ±4 points. But again, it all factors into how you do the number 1 productive, I guess that's the word, or most positive, or the greatest influence or attribute when it comes to production, and that's coaching basic strategy decisions. You need to be productive. I can just give you the example. Let's say a team gains, typically in an NFL game, 300 yards each team. Well, the same coach who gains, let's say, 300 yards can get 24 points from that. That's 3 touchdowns and 3 two-pointers. Versus another coach who can just fall, let's say, 3 yards short and have 297 yards because each time on 4th and 1 at the goal line they kick a field goal, and this only got 9 points out of that. So that's really what is the more deciding factor, even above turnovers. At least they can trump turnovers, if you will. But again, so to the Bears, God bless coach, and I send him a great advisement this week against the Niners. They're initially starting out as 6-point, maybe in some circles 7-point power spread underdogs. My numbers say basically 6 at this point, which means they're going to be already to start the game on one standard behind by 80 yards. So with turnovers, let's say, being equal, and there's certainly more data than this and to this, but with turnovers being equal, you're going to want to, manufacture 6 points just to begin the game. You're going to end up being 80 yards down by the end of that game. So I'm going to really, I think and pray that Coach Trestman took it to heart, and I really think that you're going, and I cannot, again, share everything. We have a ministerial confidentiality type of thing going, and it's between God and I, and then Coach and I. But I will say that I would expect the Bears to take a couple of chances, more aggressive in what would now, because they are a road underdog, their positive quarters are the first and third. That's when their momentum is going to be highest. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a fake punt to start in the game, first quarter, maybe third quarter. The sooner you do these types of things, the better, to be honest. So in the first quarter, maybe a crucial 4th down conversion. I don't know about an onside kick, but definitely a fake punt, I think, is in the works. So we shall see. But again, that's what the Bears are going to have to do to overcome definitely a better team in the Niners, but not as strong as people, I think, typically think. And again, the Bears, are looking at about an 8-8 season. And as I explained to Coach, they're going to really have to, quote-unquote, steal one of these. They're not expected to win. And their biggest power spread underdog situations this season will be San Francisco this week and then New England coming up. So I'm just going to give 30 more seconds to this phase of the program and then start breaking down the schedule in the last 20 minutes to those who, have a greater interest in, let's say, a financial motivation. So anyway, having said that, again, I really think the Bears, even with Marshall and Jeffrey, day by day, can still win this game. And if I was a fantasy player, which I am this season, I would take Alshon Jeffrey Um, you don't typically want to take a starting wideout or your best wideout unless you can win the game and you're the better team. Uh, Typically, if you're the underdog and you achieve a victory, it's because your second receiver had a great game or a better game, that he's more targeted, or even down to your tight end. Um, Certain teams, you know, they put tight ends at the top of their receiving charts, or their play calls, like the Saints, for instance, and a couple of others. So, but in the Bears' case, they typically think Marshall first, Jeffrey second, and the third progression is down to the tight end for most plays in general. So, anyway, all right. So that's 11 minutes of discussing last week in the Bears. Um, Now let's take a look at the master strategist. As a master strategist, the some of the numbers from last week. I know I wrote down, or at least spoke about, and I have to wholeheartedly admit my mistake about the St. Louis Rams, thinking they were better with Shaun Hill than without him. I still don't think that Bradford is the best possible obvious situation there in St. Louis, and apparently neither is Shaun Hill. Minnesota surprised me totally. I totally thought St. Louis was going to win that game. I admit I was wrong, and I wouldn't expect much now from the Rams this season based on that performance. If you can't beat the Vikings in that situation, you're not going to beat many teams. So the Rams are really going to struggle this season, and they'll surprise a couple games because they still have a very, very good defense, and they're in the highest power-ranked division, which is the NFC West. But if Shaun Hill can't do it, I would expect an upgrade when Case Keenum gets in there, who I think is actually a better quarterback and should have been in there. Maybe because of the timing, he will get in there. So I would expect a definite increase in productivity with Case Keenum in there. But other than that, I recall writing down 12 power spread games and ended up looking at them. 13, and was right or correct in 9 of those and incorrect in about 4. So I'm blessed to be able to say that and just give you the numbers from last week. So again, typically the power spread underdogs do very well in week 1. Many of them won irregardless of the power spread. They won their games straight up. They won their games, in a regular NFL NFL one-loss terminology. Didn't matter what the handicap was, or the opinion, or the market, the barometer that people put on it, or those prognosticators out on the West Coast who put, or analytics guys who put numbers on games. So that's usually the case in the first week, and it's very much the case again in the second week. It tends to be more normal in the third week, but in the second week, I definitely would look to those teams that are listed as power spread, and again, that's the word we always use, power spread underdogs, because we're looking at these games not from a financially, motivated perspective like many of you are, although this data is highly, highly accurate for that and profitable if that's the route you choose to go. The route that I and NFL ESP chooses to go is to how these numbers help teams make their basic strategy decisions, as I noted before. So we're closing in on 14 minutes into the program, and 15 minutes to go halfway. We'll send the second half to the perspective of the power spread. Again, if you need more information, you can go to actually my personal website, which is markanthonydebello.com. Click on the sports tab. You'll see some more information there. Typically, this recording, or I don't know that it's necessarily a podcast because it's not live video, I'm going to use the same montage over it as last week. Post it on Facebook, YouTube, where I can. Twitter, and generally Yahoo, perhaps, or other places where it really still irks me tremendously that quote-unquote experts with less valuable, I believe, or godly, inspired opinions have a bigger voice. and I always see their incorrect power rankings. But nonetheless, let's cut down to the games. Here we go. The first we're going to look at is the Thursday night game, Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I need to make a comment. I wanted to open the program saying something about the Ray Rice situation. First thing I just want to simply say is I believe Roger Goodell is a very good commissioner, and I believe he should still stay commissioner. As far as the situation, I know women are outraged, but this is a men's game. There's no ever excuse to actually hit a woman or even another human being, okay? Even if it's mano a mano, in the sense of, a fight, certainly in a contest, yes, but not in a violence, hate-driven situation like that. Jesus always said, turn the other cheek. Peter, when they came to even crucify Jesus, Peter took his sword and cut in the man's ear, and Jesus reprimanded him for that. So there's no reason for it, although I will say in legal, having spoken to law enforcement in the past about this, you are allowed to defend yourself in a way of self-defense if somebody, even if it's a woman or even a child, they say, because there's 10-year-olds that can point guns to defend yourself. But again, I'm one who turns the other cheek, believes Jesus taught, and you should, God would have you turn the other cheek, and if anybody has to be a victim, it needs to be you, yourself. If somebody wants to persecute you or harm you or strike you, you have to let them. You have to even do so to the point of death. So, again, that's my stance on it. But again, I also believe wholeheartedly in forgiveness, and that Ray Rice should be forgiven. I'm sure his wife in some way has forgiven him. And there's another point, and I'll wrap it up with this on this commentary, is that, they went and got married. So I know women are going to think of this as the proper perspective, but he honored her by proposing to her. Now, if he's codependent and certainly abusing her, no, that's not, what a godly person should do. I don't know Ray Rice's belief system. I don't know if he's a Christian or not. But, again, the person needs to be forgiven, and at least they're married, which is better than, the goal is to be married in life if you possibly can be. So, God bless them, and it's between them now and their God, and certainly the NFL, I believe, is one of the great businesses and great sports, if not the greatest in the world, and should handle everything from a godly perspective. So we're 18 minutes in, and I know I can knock out all these games in 12 minutes. So here we go on the fly. I like Baltimore tonight then against Pittsburgh. I believe that the public is probably playing Pittsburgh. I think Baltimore should have beaten Cincinnati last week. They had some bad plays, turnovers, a little rust, whatever the case may be. So I think Baltimore should handily beat Pittsburgh with the power spread. The next game up is Carolina and Detroit. I liked Detroit a lot last week, as you heard me say, against the Giants. I actually also like Carolina, which I mentioned. They're definitely one of the more powerful teams, and now they're getting Cam Newton back. I know they're going to have a tough schedule during the year, maybe not get the wins or get to the playoffs the way they want to, but it doesn't mean in certain game-on-game situations, individual games, that they're not the better team. But they're definitely points better than Carolina, and if you're just a 3 or 3.5 point power spread favorite at home against Detroit, that's definitely inaccurate. They should probably be about 3 or 4 without the home field advantage. The only downside is Cam Newton did say something, gave chalkboard material to a locker room material against Ndamukong Suh, which I don't believe any, I didn't see it all, but it's not going to help the Panthers. But I still think they're a better team than Detroit. And, surprisingly, Detroit was more sloppy than I thought they would be under Coach Caldwell. I still believe his discipline and the upgrade from Coach Caldwell to the Coach Schwartz from last year is going to still improve Detroit and get them near to the division lead down with the Bears in the final week of the season, just the way they were with Green Bay, who I, again, project is going to come third in that division. And again, Carolina, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be really close for the wild card. The next game up is Miami and Buffalo. Miami surprised against New England. I still basically project New England get to the Super Bowl. I'm surprised that they did lose to Miami. And Miami, their box score looked pretty strong in that game, so I think Miami's going to be surprisingly strong this year. Battle the Jets for that playoff or the wild card. Buffalo, I already mentioned them, how they defeated the Bears. Definitely not, I don't think, a better team than the Bears, and I don't think a better team than Miami. So Miami's power spread is 3 points better than Buffalo. Give Buffalo 3 for home. They've got the game listed as even. I still think Miami's a better team and going to win that game. Washington's playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville, like a horse in a sprint race, ran out to the lead against Philadelphia and choked it, or lost it. I shouldn't say choke it. I apologize to those in Jacksonville. But that team is worse this year, or at least as bad as they were last year. And I know that the running game is very weak. I was never, God bless, a big Toby Gerhart fan, and now I believe he's going to be hurt or at least wounded for this week against Washington. Jacksonville has no running game at all. The loss of Jones-Drew is dramatic, and if you have to make them be a passing game, missing their wideouts, it's going to be really tough on Jacksonville. Washington is still a very, very poor team and one of the lowest ones in that division, their division, the NFC East. If Jacksonville can get the lead again, which they could do against Washington, Washington is not Philadelphia and will have a hard time overcoming. I might have to go to 40 minutes in this show, just so you know. But I'll let you know with about a 5-minute warning, okay? Again, I would lean toward Washington, but again, I wouldn't go near this game if somebody had asked me to invest in it, whether it's Washington or Jacksonville. They're two bad teams, probably two of the worst in the NFL. The next game is Tennessee and Dallas. Tennessee, as predicted, handled Kansas City, who was highly overrated this year. Was actually overrated last year. Tennessee might be surprisingly pretty good. I kind of have some hope in Jake Locker. Dallas is pathetic. They're bad. Although I will say this, they performed very well, although with the turnovers, surprisingly closer to San Francisco, who should be downgraded this year. And Dallas almost ended up covering, if you will, that game. I know it's a word everybody out in West likes to use. So power spread wise between Tennessee and Dallas, Tennessee is definitely, I think, the better team. Virtually every team's better than any team but the Eagles in the NFC East. So I see Tennessee covering that game, giving just 3, now maybe 3.5 points. I don't know how anybody could be playing Dallas, but you know what? If it's turnover heavy, just like turnovers tend to balance from last week's San Fran-Dallas game, then I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas upset. But again, that wouldn't be a game I go near with a prediction. Arizona's playing the Giants. Giants are just as bad as Dallas. Were thumped by Detroit as predicted. Again, when Ryan Nassib comes in the quarterback, you'll see an upgrade in the Giants. I think I'm going to have to go to 40 minutes here in this program, just so you know. We're close. We're in 23 and 20 in, and so I'm going to have to take this, I think, to about 40 minutes, okay? Unless I can really knock this out. You'll know at the end. Okay, so Arizona, surprisingly to me, quite underperformed against San Diego. I had them in the playoffs against Seattle. I'm not sure about that now. I mean, I'll know for sure after 2 weeks. But there's no reason on earth that they should lose to the Giants. If they do, then Arizona's going to have problems this year and may not even get a wild card. But again, I'm not going to keep flailing or changing and waffling on my predictions like most prognosticators do. I'm going to stick with the teams I believe in and go with it. But I can tell you this: the Giants won't be near. Probably won't be near 8 and 8. They won't even be near 6 and 10. They're a really poor team, as evidenced against their loss to Detroit, which again wasn't surprising. So I wouldn't trust Arizona. It's too much of a moto game, somebody used to call it, master of the obvious. The Giants are home dog. I mean, they're going to need turnovers, dramatic turnovers to win. And if that's if they get some of those back that they lost to Detroit, then they'll have a chance. But I mean, Arizona is definitely the better team and will be around at the end of the season. The Giants will not. Next game up is New England against Minnesota. If you played and looked at the power spread data from last week, everybody was investing in New England when this power spread came out 3.5. All anybody, and I admit part of myself said this. All New England has got to do is win the game. They're probably going to win by a field goal. But you know what? Miami really outplayed them. Had a great performance. Showed it in the box score. Either New England, I would have to downgrade or upgrade Miami. But I'm not going to downgrade New England. I think New England is still your AFC team. I didn't really see the game. I wished that I did. But I'll know a lot more this week because it's basically the same power spread situation. Minnesota's a home underdog, although being in that college stadium while the new stadium's being built is really no home field advantage at all, to be honest with you. They may get a couple, again, it's just basically the home call, but other than that, they're probably as uncomfortable as it would be New England traveling to it as Minnesota having to call it home. So any kind of that factor, is negligible. So, but Minnesota, again, most everybody's probably going to be investing in New England. Minnesota might be a very surprised team this season. I don't know how or why. I guess I didn't study them enough. I have them coming in fourth in that, tightly contested NFC North. Green Bay third, Chicago and Detroit vying for the division title, and no wild card from that division. So, if Minnesota wins this game, I mean, it's really going to kind of be one of the bigger surprises from my perspective. It downgrades New England and upgrades Minnesota. And to those, I wouldn't have thought I would be saying that. So, anyway, again, as far as an investment, I wouldn't go near investing in that game. Next up is the Saints against Cleveland. I would definitely invest in Cleveland getting 6.5 points. Cleveland played very well, in my perspective, against Pittsburgh. They're undermanned, and as I noted in the broadcast from Week 1, I think you're going to see New Orleans win this game, barely, not by 6.5 points. They don't perform as well on grass or on the road, and Cleveland is a surprisingly pretty decent team, even without, I think, their best player, who's going to be Johnny Manziel, and Gordon. I don't think Gordon played. If I'm correct, he's suspended. Cameron, I think, didn't have a very good game, their tight end. But Cleveland, if they can keep this game within the power spread range, you're going to see some real good things from Cleveland. And yes, we're going to go to 40 minutes because we're 28 in here, closing in on 28. You're going to see some really good things from Cleveland after the bye week when their schedule gets a lot easier. So I think New Orleans wins this game probably by 3, 4, 5 points, but not 6.5 points. And if Cleveland goes as predicted to 0-3 come the bye week when Johnny Manziel comes in, they could actually, and I think they could, based on what Baltimore did last week, and not, depending on what Baltimore, how well the box score looks for the Baltimore game tonight. Cleveland could actually win that division. It's probably posted at about 6 or 8 or 10 to 1 to do so for those who wish to invest in that type of thing. All right, next up is Cincinnati against Atlanta. Atlanta is not as good a team I think people as they think they're going to be. They were bad last year. Many people project them to be 8-8 this year. I still don't think they're that good a team, even though they got a ton of yardage against New Orleans. I think it's more of a downgrade toward New Orleans' defense. Cincinnati did surprise me last week. I did think Baltimore would win that game. I'm surprised Cincinnati played as well as they did. That game to me is basically a toss-up. So if in a game that's a toss-up situation like that, if you're going to get 5.5 points in a power spread, you might as well take it. And again, in Week 2, lots of power spread underdogs come out and cover. So, I mean, there were 12 maybe last week, 10, 11, or 12. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I can see just as many, if not maybe 9 or 7 or maybe 10 and 6 with the power spread underdogs, and that's a pretty decent number, 5.5 to give Atlanta, who could actually even win this game straight up. Okay, 10.5 minutes to go in the program. Tampa Bay and St. Louis. I already spoke about St. Louis. Tampa Bay could have actually beat Carolina. I didn't think they would, and they didn't. Again, I think a lot of people are speculating them to be better than they were last year. That's true. I can see that under Coach Smith. But how much better, you know? And is it good enough to even defeat an NFC West team? Sean Hill in his second game, maybe he has a bad half. Case Keenum comes in and lights up the second half. I don't know. Like I said, I like Case Keenum when he comes in for St. Louis, but you're not probably going to find an NFC West team getting points like this against a winless team like Tampa. So, um, uh, Tampa Bay, um, like I said, really, they could actually lose this game. Probably will lose this game. I think perhaps straight up. Although they do get 3.5 points home field advantage. I've been to games in Tampa, lived in Tampa, and those referees are definitely biased by the Tampa fans. So they would definitely be a 3.5 point. And you'll see, I guarantee for Tampa to win, you're going to see a home cooking, if you will, call. Next up is Seattle, San Diego. Seattle looked as good as we thought they would. I thought they would last week in the opener. They're the best team in the NFL. I think they're going to repeat. Their power rated the highest and should be. San Diego surprised me very much last week by defeating Arizona. They come out of the Denver division. If Seattle is if the power spread is listed as 6 points, that means basically Seattle is 9 points better than San Diego. They were 9 points better than Denver last year. Denver was better than San Diego. So Seattle could go through what I say, run through the number or go through this number of 6 points. But, big but, for those investing, you'll find out a lot about this game because a lot of people are investing in Seattle, as you would expect. If you can get a home underdog getting 6 points, that's hard to deny, especially from a playoff team. So I can definitely see San Diego covering this game, or at least keeping that power spread close. For them, it's basically has to take turnovers. There's no other way San Diego can do it. Seattle typically doesn't turn the ball over. They create a lot of turnovers. It would just have to be. It won't be. I don't think Russell Wilson interceptions. I think it's going to be bounces of the ball. If San Diego can do something like kick an onside kick, but something might be up in that game. And if San Diego can make a dramatic play like that, they can keep this game close and covered. But I don't see them beating Seattle outright. Seattle's just too good a team. Next game up is Houston and Oakland. As projected last week, Houston surprised, did very, very well. They actually probably should have lost the game to Washington. They only won because of turnovers, basically. I was surprised by that, but they ended up, they did win. Oakland got actually dominated in total yardage by the Jets, and kept the game right at that power spread, which was 5 points. I don't know how they managed to do that. That the Jets outgained them by 300 yards. I think I didn't do all the research, but maybe too many Jet field goals or a couple bad calls by the Jets, too conservative. But they should have point produced much better than they did. But again, Oakland is not a very good team, and I'm hoping I didn't, overreach on how well I thought Houston would do or how good I think Houston would be. But I will say that Houston did lose Jadeveon Clowney, which was making a huge difference for them. So the loss of him, I think, is really going to affect the Houston defense. He was part of the reason that I really, gave them a big upgrade. So again, that game I wouldn't invest in if I was a person who was, open to doing that. And it's basically just comes down to Houston being ranked 3 points better. Give Oakland's probably about a 3.5 point, maybe 3 point home favorite. I'm sorry, home advantage team. So that's a lot of points, 6 points for a team that had only 2 wins last year, Houston, to be better than Oakland. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Houston wins that game by like a point or something. One of those crazy games with a lot of field goals or something, and just some anomaly, a safety, and it could be anything. All right, so the next game up is Green Bay and the Jets. We got closing in on 5 minutes to go with 4 games. I'm going to tell you this right from my heart. I believe the Jets are going to beat Green Bay straight up. The power spread opened at 10.5. If people saw that, they should have ran to the window to invest. It's now leveled out at about 8.5, 8. It'll probably go up a little bit more, but this is 85-90% game that the Jets, that is way too many power spread points to give a team that I think is going to be the AFC wild card, but especially a team like Green Bay coming out of that NFC North. That's way too many points. And if you can get 3-1, which is typically what they'll give you in that city out west, if your underdog wins straight up as an 8-point, 8.5-point underdog, that's a pretty good price. And again, the wire, so be it. But I think the Jets are actually going to win this game straight up. Green Bay's got some line injuries from the first week, and Green Bay, like I said, I project comes third in their division. Um, Again, if they get their line, they're number in Kansas City. Kansas City is horrific, as I said, overrated. Denver, I think, is overrated, but they're definitely better than Kansas City. I wouldn't go near this game with the power spread. Kansas City, Andy Reid is conservative. He's not going to take the chances, I don't think, that need to be taken. Onside kicks, fake punts, third and shorts, fourth and ones, returning every kick out of the end zone. You know, all these types of things that you need to do, slowing the game down. If they get in a fast-paced, fast-break game, if you will, with Denver and Peyton Manning and that offense, they're going to get destroyed. So Kansas City needs to do some real NFL ESP factors. I didn't hear from Chris Ballard this year, who is one of their key executives. It's a shame. I mean, he did say submit him some NFL ESP information. I didn't get hired by them, didn't get called back. Doesn't bode well for them. Denver should win easily. Straight up. I wouldn't go near. Next up is San Fran, Chicago. I already talked a lot about this game in Chicago. I can definitely see Chicago winning this game outright. God bless Coach Trestman. It's all up to his basic strategy decisions. And obviously, they're going to have to win the turnover battle and manufacture the 6 or 7 points that they're going to need. But either way, if I was just an investor, I would definitely invest in Chicago wholeheartedly. Chicago can definitely cover this game. Normally, I'd be comfortable with an NFC West team, giving the NFC North team 7. But in this situation, opening game, Levi's Stadium, regular season, that power spread number is probably inflated from a West Coast perspective. That Sodom and Gomorrah city in Nevada. So get a turnover, they will. That, like I said, that bold, aggressive, the word I keep using with Coach Dressman, decision. I think you're going to see Chicago definitely cover this game in the power spread and very well win this game straight up. All right, the last game on the slate is another nationally televised game, Monday Night Football. Indianapolis last week did keep Denver close with regards to the power spread. They had turnovers, which basically cost them the game, or they would have been a lot closer. Philly, I mentioned about Jacksonville, gave up an early lead. If you give up 17 points to Jacksonville, you're not a good defensive team, even in the entire game. But to give up 17 in the first, half or quarters like they did, doesn't bode well for Philly. I still think they win the division. The way they came back, though, was tremendous by Philly. So they're a good team, Philly. Don't get me wrong. They'll be a playoff team. But in this situation, Indianapolis is definitely the better team. I would definitely think that they're better than a 3 or 3.5 point power spread favorite. That typically means if Indy and they are a 3.5 point home team, a home field advantage team, that means these teams are relatively even. No, I don't think so. No, Indianapolis, a playoff team from the AFC with Andrew Luck, is not even with Philadelphia. I would definitely invest in Indianapolis this game. And when we do that, we give them a sort of percentage ranking, 90%, 85, 80, 75, 65%, and how effective, the probability we think that they're going to cover with the power spread. And I think I've got Indianapolis at 85%. I definitely have the Jets at 90%. But again, I don't see, even though people are investing in Indy, which my data shows me, the percentages show that many people are already investing in Indy. Let them. They got to be right once in a while. So anyway, God bless. 40 minutes. This is Mark Anthony DeBello with NFLESP.com. God bless you in this week of NFL football, and may